So good morning, everybody. I'm Jean-François Leduc, and I'm in charge of the construction and engineering in Quebec Airport, and I'm also in charge of YQB 2018, which is the extension of the airport that we're currently involved in. Thank you, Ms. Becan, and you've basically given everything away. I've got nothing left to say. Essentially, I'd like to give you more specifics about the project that we got involved in at the airport and our BIM process and what it was like as owners. I think we were one of the ones who really were pushing hard in this direction because we believe in it. We believed in the benefits of BIM, even though there wasn't a lot of literature on the subject at the time. But we believed in it, and so we got involved in it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about our process since that began in 2008. First, I have to figure out how this works. Okay. So today, I'm going to be telling you what's been happening at the airport since 2008. I'll be discussing the YQB 2018 investment program that we're currently involved in, and I'll be discussing the project management methodology that we implemented at the airport for our internal processes and that we've transmitted to all the professionals who work with us. I'll begin with a quick BIM video that we recently made.
Building information modeling, better known as BIM, is an effective, responsible, and innovative vision of construction. BIM brings together the processes and technologies used to manage each stage of a building's life, from its design through its operation to its demolition. Traditionally, construction management was done on a chain, not exploiting the full potential of simultaneous teamwork and the diversity of expertise. Projects adopting the BIM approach are collaborative from start to finish. The professionals work simultaneously on the same virtual model in the same place. Problems and interfaces are identified directly on the virtual model rather than being detected by surprise on the site. Building maintenance data are part of the layout, allowing for more responsible, long-term management of the building. Quebec City, Jean-Lesage International Airport firmly believes in the positive effects of building information modeling. For its YQB 2018 project, an old hangar was transformed to accommodate 100 specialists from various fields working simultaneously in real time. With the help of advanced tools, problems are identified directly on the computer model rather than on site. Technical maintenance managers are involved upstream, as they'll eventually be responsible for the 3D model and the building itself. YQB 2018 represents a $277 million investment to double the size of the terminal, which is already operating at full capacity. Thanks to the BIM process, the project should meet both the tight deadline and the budget.
So I'd like to begin with an overview of the work we've done since 2008 at the airport, just to give you an idea of the diversity and the extent of work we've done. So just for your information, we're a nonprofit corporation. We're a private company, Quebec Airports, Inc., and we manage the Jean-Lesage Airport interests. So we have to respect all the governance rules for our kind of organization, even though we're a private corporation. It gives us a bit more flexibility in managing contracts. So we're kind of like a mini city. We deal with all the work, civil, runways. We also deal with the road network, with whatever infrastructure that implies, and all the buildings, the terminals, the parking lot, the technical services center, the whole population around the airport. There are about 200 employees who are permanent at the airport, but there are also 2,500 people on the site working for various companies. Often there are tenants, and we have to manage that land. We have to manage their buildings in some cases. So that's it. So since 2008 we had the first extension, which you see in red on the screen. We increased the terminal for the first time. We didn't use BIM at the time. We didn't even know about those processes at the time. but we had had some construction experience, which was somewhat more painful. There were a lot of changes during the course of the project. The program wasn't properly defined to start with, and we learned our lessons from it. In 2010, we began to do some work on the runways, on the aprons, and then we were in 2012, we had parking lots for workers, and we had other roads. 2011, rather, in 2012, we had a major $15 million project. Then we started to displace the underground services because we had several buildings that had to be moved and demolished so as to allow for the construction of the new terminal. So that program took several years. In 2013, there was a lot of action that began at the airport. We built the multi-level parking lot. In fact, we had gotten rid of the fire station a year before and to have a combined service center, which was fire department, maintenance, mechanic center, and building maintenance center. We started to remove all the underground services to plan for the multi-level parking lot. In 2014, we had many more roads, and that was about $30 million worth of projects. In 2015, we began building the terminal by digging, and you see that in black. We added roads in on the site. In 2016, we began to rehabilitate our main runways for the intersection, and that's continuing in 2017. So that we'll redo completely our 0624. Then we have our retention basins, etc. So this is our work site. What's in pale blue versus what's in gray is the extension. That's major. It's more than doubling the surface area of the building at the airport. So it's a big change in culture, a big change for all processes, for everybody. And we had to consider this and consider everybody working in operations largely, because often they're excluded from construction projects. Or if they are included, they're included very late in the game. And at that point, you discover all kinds of operation problems because the designers often don't know what they need to integrate in terms of the user's needs. So we worked for a good year and a half on designing a functional technical program with some outside help, but also with all internal stakeholders, so that we could have a construction project that really was solid. So I'm going to tell you a little more about this a little later on. I also want to mention the investment program from 2008. From 2008 to 2015, we invested $225 million. Since 2015, the YQB 2018 program has $277 million dollars with 37 different projects, and there are things being added of all sizes every month, every year. We have 100 professionals in a project office time, full-time, 250 workers on site. We have $8 to $10 million in monthly payments, 6,500 bills every year. So just to compare to Quebec Airport, Inc. and regular operations, our annual volumes were 57 million, and I had 165 employees. So the construction project is actually a bigger company than the company that runs the airport. So you need to have perfect organization that's extremely well planned, because we all know, if you're involved in projects in this industry, you know that we work and we are involved in tenders and calls for tenders. We don't know who we're going to end up with. And you're always reinventing the wheel with new people who don't really know your own processes. So what's important is to define the process. At Aéroport de Québec, how do we want to have our project? How do we want to structure it? So that we can transmit this to new teams of professionals. So I talk to all kinds of colleagues, and they always say it's the same professionals work on almost all the major projects. And it seems like they don't learn from one project to the next. You have to recoach them every single time. You have to start from scratch. And so you have to have good processes to be able to do this. So I put a slide here for project management methodology. I am convinced that project success depends on proper methods. So you see all these words up on the screen, but they all are part of the structure of a project. At the Quebec Airport, we decided to have an internal heart for our structure. I call it the intelligence We have a team of about 15 people in-house who are engineers, technicians, architects, designers, who only do management. No design, no calculations. We hire those people outside. But the strength of our project is that we have taken professionals from different areas. So in my case, this is the first time I had such a multidisciplinary team. We had people specialized in communications who are 100% in the project and deal with all media communications and manage any crisis. They're part of the construction meetings. They know what's going on, and they're capable of transmitting it over all the networks. And then we have operations people. It's the first time we've had a full-time person with their team in a construction project. They were part of design right from the beginning, but they also deal with all of daily coordination with the various stakeholders on site. Another difficulty that we have at the airport is that there are a lot of external entities that we don't control. For example, NAV Canada, airlines, handling companies who do the baggage handling. And then we have companies who manage the baggage rooms in the basement. There are all kinds of specialized companies. And more often than not, they can be government companies as well. And they don't move as quickly as we do. So we have to integrate them into the process to make this project succeed. I'm thinking about customs, and I'm thinking about AXA. We're thinking about whoever does the safety inspections. We have to work with them because they're going to be working in the facility in the future. So we have people on our team who deal with that. Then we have people in charge of construction who manage. We decided to have project management with a construction manager, and it's managed by lots. So this person supervises budgets and scheduling. Then we also have someone in charge of technical equipment and the airport equipment. It's somewhat of a specialty. The baggage room is the heart of an airport. A tremendous number of suitcases go through in a year, and you shouldn't lose them. It's really useful to have your suitcase when you arrive at destination, isn't it? So these companies are more often than not from Europe or Asia, and they have to be integrated into the construction project. So we use construction models for their equipment, which are part of our design models in Revit right away, so that we have our professional teams and our overseas outside teams can coordinate with each other. So we have somebody in charge of that. And then we have the loading gates and boarding areas, and there are people in charge. So then we have somebody in an airport. We want to be a highly technology-oriented airport, so we have an IT specialist as well to make sure that everything works in terms of processes. If we have somebody coming in from the city and we want them to get from the entrance to the gate in 10 minutes with no wait, we want there to be connectivity with all mobile devices. And we have to manage the whole data network for the airport. Airlines connect via us, so we have to provide that service. And we have to be able to also do the baggage check-in. Everything, we have to provide complete service. So it's really omnipresent. I'm looking to see what else there is on the screen here.
Le civil, c'est une grosse proportion parce que
Civil is a major proportion because the rules are different than what we see usually for these networks. So this is a type of project we used, and all the professional teams that are under this, they have to report to these people, and each project is divided in sub-projects, and each manager, project leader, is responsible for managing the risks and also is accountable for his own project. And I deal with the whole thing. I'm the manager of the whole thing. So something that's interesting here in the building we are doing, we also used Revit. We were one of the first ones to have a design team that designed in 3D. There were other examples in the past where the builder was interested in creating a 3D model with plans and specs that were created. So we got together all these professionals to have our 3D project or approach. It changed a lot in Quebec. Mainly the architect had to adapt to this change and work simultaneously with the other engineers. structure, electrical, and mechanical engineers. In structure, it's a little easier because we're used to working in 3D, but in architecture, it was more difficult. There were a lot of details, so we were able to coordinate this, although it was a major issue. And we're starting to see the benefits of all this. We can measure that versus our budget, and we know that we reach better performances than we did in the past. I cannot give figures right now, but for the buildings that are completed, we have very good rates, between 0 to 5% for most. We're very proud of this because this was the objective we had given ourselves, to sell this to the corporation, because the BIM approach has to have the buy-in of the airport managers, and we had to show the potential benefits of all this. Now, quality management, the tools we used a code book, Revit. In fact, from the very beginning, when we designed our PFT, we put all this in our database, and this database has to follow all the life cycle of the project up to the maintenance. And we're now using these in programming. It works very well. We have a nomenclature that have been set up. We've already started carrying out our tests. We will not, everything is paperless. All the contractors, subcontractors have to submit their documents electronically. It's managed by the database, and it works simultaneously with Revit. Other tools that were quite useful during the whole life cycle of this project, the GUIDE, which is our preventive maintenance software that has to be reprogrammed in order to have it talk to our construction database, and vice versa, to have the GUIDE IT to work with the model, because the problem is that we always have 23 to 25 projects that are going on at the same time. So we have to have a communication between the database, and we wanted to use this tool for our new projects. These are practical details of our project. The financial indicators, each month these indicators are updated and they're presented in the various governance committees, and in certain cases they go up to the board. So we show our monthly financial indicators for the various activities. We used a software that we adapted to our sauce. It's an American software, and some cities use this software in Canada as well. The major problem with the implementation of all this was to identify all the internal processes, management processes, who had to approve, what about the directors, how could directives, what were the various stakeholders' approval rates or thresholds. All this system works very well now. It's done in a very transparent and automatic way. Obviously, it does not remove the human beings behind all this, because human beings can think, but it ensures us that there's a good governance, because there's no possible guide for the various contract awarding, project management, etc. For the budget, same thing. I think that project management goes through the review of financial forecasts. Each month for each sub-project we meet, and we have meetings with the various professionals in order to be able to be consistent versus our budget. Now, concerning the schedule, we had very good objectives. We wanted to have our database. We decided to use Primavera for the schedule management. We finally linked that to all of our construction lots. This is followed month after month. We have a lot of planners working on this. One from our internal planning, who supervises the planner of our construction manager. He does not really supervise, but they talk to one another, because we manage a lot of internal projects that have to be coordinated with the thousands of construction projects. And from one month to the other, these projects are carried out. We also did very good simulations with the models, with the time lapse. there's a big portion of the building which is a new building, but there's a portion that is even more complex because we're demolishing the central portion of the airport that creates a hole of approximately 500 feet between both buildings. All the mechanical systems have to work, all the luggage systems have to work as well. And we realized all this upstream. We had to modify our construction plans before, in fact, calling for tenders. So this time, this type of test is difficult to quantify. It's very costly. But what we can see with time is that we have much less major changes on site. And as owners, something that we have to think about is ourselves, our internal changes, our desire to change this and that and the other, because we would like to have a staircase such as in place. The BIM model and the modeling we did in 3D allowed us to coach the higher management of the airport in order to have them visualize a project. A small project that was a fun project also with the goggles, the Oculus goggles. We worked with a IT company from Quebec to be able to transfer our Revit model to a video game. So with the Google, we were able to go through the building, and we were able to show all this to the higher managers of the airport and the other stakeholders to look at the project we have to deliver. Because we realize that many people do not really understand what the project will look like at the end. So this is why this is a very good approach. So this leads to the risk management and contract management. We also manage these aspects like for standard projects. I talked about it previously. We're submitted to all the rules of public governance. We don't necessarily know the contractors with whom we will work, but we also integrated a lot of BIM clauses in our call for tender. It's true that this is new on the market. The bigger contractors are starting to know how to use this with the fans, electricity structures, and so we're dealing also with other aspects to be able to be even better in the future. Now, the clash we have on sites, the directives that we have to follow, oftentimes it's for small things. All the big pieces of the puzzle are there, and there are sometimes problems with the pipes, 2-inch pipes. So, for example, the conveyor, the luggage conveyors, are not necessarily modeled. So it's difficult, in fact, for people from the manufacturing sector. I'm a mechanical engineer, and in the past I worked in this field, and I think that the methods are more advanced than what we have in the construction. When you design an aircraft, you have 100 of suppliers throughout the world, and the tolerances arrive. Why, when we build a building, we cannot do this? I think that we will have such tools in the future. We're coming to it, but we have to push hard in order to be able to reach these results. This shows what we did with BIM. We're trying to promote the BIM approach in order to get professionals and contractors to use this method. For the 3, 6, and 7D. Well, we push very hard on the 7D right now because we would like to transfer this database for our operation team. We also used the best practices from various countries, Scandinavian countries, and in England as well. They're more advanced than we are here in Quebec. And the links between the Revit construction model and the management platform for preventive maintenance and asset management are almost inexistent. So we used the COBE standards, all the nomenclatures, in order to be able to manage these technical specs, manage information, know what information should be transferred to the technical service and what information they have to transfer us. And we're now creating these bi-directional links. So this is another challenge. We've not experienced it, but we want to maintain this model active for the future life of the airport, because oftentimes once the construction project is completed, we go on to another project. We don't want this. We want to have this information and this intelligence that was collected using 300 professionals. So commissioning and operations, I mentioned it slightly previously. We also used the best practices throughout the world, a concept that is called Oracle operational readiness in airport transfer. It's all the operational and technical use of the buildings. It includes all the information that can be done by all the informers. The lady that's working in a new airport, she doesn't know the building, she doesn't know where to go, she doesn't know where to reach such and such a place. So we have to carry out tests with the public. We bought buses, 200 to 300 suitcases. We simulated flights before opening the door because there are so many users that will use the airport. We have to do all these tests. We visited an airport in Sweden recently. They did carry out this test, and they lost 80% of the suitcases with a test. You don't want that, in fact, to happen to you because you'll have a very bad day if that happens to you. So we'll try to carry out more and more tests in order to be able to avoid such missteps. And the 6D, 7D technical service, as I said previously, GMAO, asset management, post-project operations. We have people from the maintenance sector that are already present to do the project. In fact, there has to be a buy-in of the stakeholders. This is the secret of the BIM. BIM is not a software. We have to repeat it. BIM is to have people work together and communicate together, which puts an end to my presentation. There I am. I respected the time that was given to me.